There we go. Hello, everybody. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. I hope you're all well. So far, we only have 5 people in the meeting, so we'll wait a little bit longer, I think, till we gather a few more people. Um, but in the meantime, it's very nice to see you. Um, feel free to put on your cameras, but maybe you could just mute yourselves, keep yourselves muted. Um, yeah, we have 6. We have another person. So, today we're going to be talking about the next steps for this small grants program that we're working on. And this is a webinar for the projects that have been selected and will receive small grants. And the main purpose of this webinar is to take you through the next steps to finalize a contract between yourselves, your institutions, and the CBD so we can start implementing these small grants. We have another person. Yeah, maybe we can just wait a couple more minutes. There's. So we will be recording this meeting and we will make it available to everybody afterwards. So you'll have a chance to share it with your colleagues and we can share it with some of the people who might not be able to attend. Manu is there. Maybe we can start just with some introductions from the CBD side. And we can maybe begin. But maybe I'll start with introducing myself. I think I know most of you, but my name is Matthew Diaz. I'm working at the CBD Secretariat in the ABS unit, and I'm working on the portion of the ABS information systems for the small grants. And I'll let my colleague Nia also introduce herself next.
Thank you, Matt. Um, attending. My name is Nia Charrett. I joined the ABS unit about 2 months ago, and I will be working on the building and
Beatrice, do you want to go ahead?
Yeah, good morning, good afternoon. I'm Beatriz Gomez. I work also on the ABS unit, and I'm working more on one of the other components of the small grants, but we are all working as a team, so we will be all supporting each other.
Thank you, Beatrice. Alex, can you introduce yourself as well, please?
Hi, everyone. Welcome. And I work with the ABS team, so likely we'll be exchanging emails or correspondence over the next few months. Thanks.
Hello.
So I'll also invite our colleague and principal coordination officer, Fumiko, to introduce herself. And she will also provide us with a few welcoming remarks on behalf of the Japan Biodiversity Fund, who is sponsoring these small grants and the donors. So thank you, Fumiko.
Yes, hello everybody. I'm Fumiko Nakao. I'm the head of the Biodiversity Fund team at the Secretariat. Nice meeting you.
Yeah, so maybe before we get into the welcome remarks from Fumiko, I'll just remind you that we're recording this webinar. We'll make it available. It's going to be primarily in English, but if you do have questions in French or Spanish, we can help you with that, or maybe Japanese. But yeah, it will be primarily in English and it will be recorded, so we'll make that available. So this is the small grants program. We're going to provide information about the next steps to finalize a contract with the SCBD in order to be able to start dispersing the money and start working on these grants. So we'll provide our timeline for the next year until COP17, where we'll have an event to highlight and show off all the work we've done. So with that, I'll just pass it over to Fumiko to provide a few remarks. Thank you.
Once again, hello everybody. On behalf of the Japan Biodiversity Fund at the Secretariat of the Convention on Biological Diversity, I'd like to extend my heartfelt congratulations to all of you for being selected for this important initiative. The Japan Biodiversity Fund, generously supported by the government of Japan, has been a steadfast supporter of the Nagoya Protocol since its inception. Over the years, the fund has financed 16 projects related to the protocol, supporting a wide range of initiatives, from promoting ratification and developing national ABS frameworks to raising awareness about the value of genetic resources. These efforts have included targeted capacity building programs, the development of legal frameworks for ABS, technical support, outreach activities, and translation efforts to facilitate the use of the ABS clearinghouse mechanisms. The project you are launching today marks a new chapter in our support for the Nagoya Protocol. Unlike previous initiatives, this project focuses on turning theory into practice. Thanks to the dedication and enthusiasm of the ABS team at the Secretariat, we are now providing small grants to countries actively working on the protocol project designed to deliver tangible and impactful results. A follow-up event at COP17 will showcase the outcome of these projects with the aim of inspiring further action and attracting additional funding by highlighting your achievements. Indeed, after more than a decade of implementation, the Nagoya Protocol has built a strong foundation of experience and networks. These can now be leveraged to amplify more impacts. The Japan Biodiversity Fund, together with other donors, is proud to support this momentum, contributing to the achievement of the action targets under the KMGBF. Today marks the beginning of a new journey in implementation. We look forward to working with all of you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Fumiko. So with that opening remarks, I'll just provide a little bit of a history of what some of the things the Japan Fund has supported and what we've been doing since the entry into force in 2014 of the workshop, of the protocol. So in the beginning, back in 2014, a lot of the Secretariat's capacity building was focusing on preparing countries, preparing parties to ratify and establish the required legal framework and institutional arrangements needed to implement the protocol. So we had these regional workshops about awareness raising, we had regional workshops, and we had some e-learning modules developed to help countries establish and update their ABS legislation. And those, to be honest, those e-learning modules are still very useful. I still even look at them now and remind myself about some of the things that we have the protocol envisions us to do. So that's where we started. So it was all about setting up and getting ready, preparing, doing some of the prerequisite actions to do ABS. And then we started, after the first assessment and the review of the protocol in 2018, we started working more about supporting implementation and operationalizing those ABS frameworks to actually be able to handle ABS in practice. So we focused more about doing ABS. So in 2019, we had a global workshop in Bonn where we talked a lot about the compliance, the system for compliance with checkpoints that the protocol also sets up to support this work. After COP15 in the GBF, We also had another workshop in 2024, just recently, in Bonn again, supported by the Japan Fund and the German government, to talk really specifically about what countries are working on, try to share a lot of experience on very practical, useful steps that they were taking to actually implement and do ABS in practice. Um, After that workshop, we set up, we talked a lot about the theory and what countries were doing, and a lot of countries who were actively working on finalizing their frameworks, working on the protocol, um, and we're ready to start doing some implementation. Instead of talking more about the theory of what to do, we decided to also try to support these countries with some small grants to on certain thematic areas that would have a big impact. So this is where we are now. So we're launching the small grants project. So the next slide. So the objective of this small grants project, you may have been also in the earlier webinars, but basically the idea is that we're advancing some practical solutions to implement the protocol. And the whole point of these pilot projects are to share that experience with others. We're going to try to learn as much as we can from these experiences, share that experience, inspire others to action, collaborate among other countries, and try to replicate those successes. So this is the whole point of this project. And the idea is that it's going to increase the benefit shared, and that's also the objective of Goal C of the GBF. And the idea is that at COP17 again, well, and throughout this process, we're going to try to encourage and catalyze more funding and more action to do this work. So after that workshop we had in 2024 in October in Bonn, we focused in on three areas of work that countries could focus on for these small grants that would have a big impact in terms of implementing and advancing the protocol. So one was community protocols and associated traditional knowledge. The other one was ABS procedures, and part of that work is handled by the German Nagoya Protocol Hub and their ABS Easy Guides for users to understand how to get access to genetic resources and traditional knowledge. And then the third theme was ABS information systems and internal operating procedures. Just before, I just want to mention, if you have any questions about any of this, we'll kind of try to save the questions to the end, but feel free to copy any questions into the chat now. But there will be a question period at the end. So if we zoom in on where we are right now, this is sort of a timeline with different steps, 6 different steps. So I'll just take us back to closer to the beginning of this year. We organized a call for proposals. So that was in March, earlier this year. We had a lot of we had a lot of submissions, a lot of people proposed projects, and we've narrowed it down. And now we have selected projects that we will try to fund and implement in the next year. So the third step, and these are sort of our like target deadlines and dates for this work to happen. So from September to October this year, so basically this month, we want to update and finalize contracts, these SSFAs with all of you. So that's our plan for September. So it's going to be a lot of work, but we have 1 month. We're giving ourselves this deadline to do that. The fourth step, in October, we want to sign these contracts and start dispersing funding so project implementation can begin. And then from October to October 2026, we'll have 1 year to implement these projects. And there'll be a reporting structure we'll set up to make sure we check in frequently and try to ensure that these projects can work. And then in the 6th step, in October 26, there'll be COP 17 in Yerevan in Armenia, We're organizing side events, and we're going to organize a full-day workshop to show off the work that we've done. So that's sort of the timeline that we're working around, and main milestones that we're going to try to is our target. So if we go back to step 1, that was in March, we had this call for proposals, you may remember, and we set up a web page. So the web page provides all the information on the small grants. We'll also put up eventually the list of selected projects there as well. So we had a lot of interest in this. I won't talk so much about the theme on ABS procedures because that's being taken care of by a implementing partner, the German Nagoya Protocol Hub. So they've already launched that activity. So I'm just going to focus on the improving information systems and community protocols. So under improving information systems, we had a total of 29 proposals from 21 countries. 3 were multi-country proposals. We had a lot from Africa and some from Asia, and in total we had 28. And just about that, I'll talk about it a little more as well, but all these proposals were very similar. They all touched on a lot of the information systems that need to be set up by the protocol that everybody has to do. So there's a lot of potential in these projects for coordination, for developing really solutions that can be used by others, or solutions that will really help inspire others and help them implement their projects. So on the developing community and implementing community protocol side, we had a total of 61 proposals from 38 countries, and it was very difficult for all these projects to narrow them down to the ones we selected. So yeah, as you can see, there was a lot from Africa, from Latin America, and Asia, but 61 in total. So there was a lot of interest, and we couldn't fund them all. So the selected projects, we selected 10 for the ABS procedures side. We selected 7 projects for the ABS information systems and 6 from the community protocols. And so there is still a lot of projects that were very interesting. I mean, it was very difficult to make this, to whittle this down, because all the projects were very well done. And part of some of the reasons and that we narrowed them down was to try to get a nice geographical representation. And so there are still a lot of proposals that we'd like to share with other funding opportunities, like the NBSAP Accelerator and their matchmaking project, and we'll try to support some of those other projects to get funding as well. And again, they can be resubmitted perhaps if we do this in the next round. So if I just zoom in a little bit on the information system, ABS information systems, there was a lot of overlap in the outputs from these projects and what they were trying to do. So there's a great potential for collaboration. And for that, I would like to organize another webinar next Thursday, a week from now, for just those projects. And we can talk about exactly, perhaps those projects can introduce themselves and a little bit what they're doing, and I'll show you where they're overlapping, and perhaps we can think about how they can work together, how we can maybe organize some of the things that need to be done together. For example, 4 projects that we selected want to set up some, I mean, in their concept notes, I'm sure more do, but they want to do something interoperable with the ABS Clearinghouse. So we can set up, for example, a meeting all together where we go through exactly what you need to do for those things with the Secretariat, with the programmers here to help with those projects. So we'll try to coordinate and make the process of achieving all the things that we want to do as easy as possible. So that's part of what the Secretariat can help do to support these projects as they're being implemented. But an invite will get sent out, and I'll provide some more information about that in the coming and later today or tomorrow about the next webinar. So moving on to step 3. So this is the update and finalize the contracts. So I'm going to pass the floor over to Nia to discuss a little bit about the plan for this busy month that we're about to head into. Well, we're in right now, actually.
Thank you, Matt. I've been told that my volume is quite low. Can you all hear me okay? Yeah? Okay. If there's any problems, let me know and I'll take the headphones out. Great. So yes, step 3, which is really quite a critical step in this whole process because it's the step prior to us being able to release funds and before the actual implementation of the project can begin. So we will need to work quite closely together during this month to finalize the project proposals and the content of the SSFAs. And then internally within the Secretariat, there's quite a bit of internal processing that we have to oversee. So we've set ourselves an ambitious timeline and we'd really like to, we need to work very closely and expeditiously to complete this. So this week and next week, we will be paying very close attention to adjusting the project deliverables, developing a results hierarchy, and refining the implementation timeline, given that we now have a 12-month implementation period. So we're hoping that no later than week 3 of this month, we will have a full SSFA package ready, including all the annexes reviewed and signed, leaving us with the last week of the month to process the SSFAs internally so that funds can reach you all, hopefully by the first week of October. So yes, busy month. So if we move to the next slide, you'll see that basically we wanted to give a bit of background of what this small-scale funding agreement is. And essentially, it's a simplified, low-value contractual arrangement that's used by UN agencies to channel funds quickly and flexibly to governments, NGOs, civil society organizations, community-based groups for a very well-defined and short-term activity that obviously is under the whole chapeau of the UN's strategic goals and objectives. So this is something that will need to be signed and agreed to in order for you to receive funding. And if we go to the next slide, you'll get a sense of, or a little preview of what would be in the SSFA. And there's essentially 2 parts to it: the standard contract, and for the most part, the clauses within the standard contract are non-negotiable. And the reasons for this is because, well, first of all, it's important to protect the UN's legal status, but also equally important is to uphold fiduciary standards. And this is important because the UN manages public funds from member states. So within the context of the small grants projects, this would be funds coming from Japan and Denmark. And so the standard clauses guarantee that the minimum requirements are met on financial reporting and ethical use of funds. It also ensures consistency and safeguarding the integrity of the organization. So this would include reducing the risk of fraud, mismanagement of funds, and also minimizing any donor mistrust. And also in terms of efficiency, as I said earlier, the SSFAs are meant to be small, quick, and simplified agreements, which allow, therefore allowing negotiations over legal text would just slow down the process, right? And then defeating the purpose of a rapid disbursement mechanism. So just to emphasize that they're not just partnership documents, but also part of the UN's global accountability and risk management framework. So while there are annexes that are contained within the SSFA that you may be able to adapt, especially the technical parts, such as the activities, the budgets, the outputs, essentially the legal backbone stays the same. So while we won't go into the specific details of the SSFA clauses in this session, we will share these with you within the next week or so to give you ample time to review and ask any questions during this particular step. So if we look at what the annexes are in a bit more detail, we could go to the next slide where we give a little overview of what the project proposal will look like. Some of you have already received both Annex 1 and 2. Those that haven't, they'll be coming very shortly your way. And this is, for this annex and the second annex, is really where we need you to focus your attention and provide inputs in order to finalize within the next 2 weeks. So Annex 1 is essentially an expanded project proposal based on the original submission that you sent back in May, which allows for the elaboration of a logical framework, also any adjustments that are needed to the project to ensure that we can deliver within a 12-month implementation period. And this gives you an overview of where we will be needing your inputs, as well as sections where perhaps the text has already been set and will be uniform across all the projects. So that's Annex 1. Annex 2 is essentially the template for both the preparation of the project budget as well as the expenditure report that will be required from you towards the end of the project. And at this stage, what we need you to do is enter your planned budget information into this table. A list of expenditure categories is provided to help you determine the budget required at the activity level. So this is how we would need you to plan and prepare your budget. And again, this report or the template will serve as your financial reporting template that will be required once the project has operationally closed. So that's Annex 1 and Annex 2, which we need immediate attention to. And then Annex 3 is essentially another template outlining what information we would like to, I guess, for you to collect and present to us in a bi-monthly report. And the idea behind this is that we would like to touch base with each of the implementing partners every 2 months to get a progress update on the project implementation. And this will be our key monitoring approach. And this serves as an opportunity, first and foremost, to build a relationship with you, to help us understand better the context you work within, whether that's national, subnational, community level, and ultimately become better informed in how we can meet the capacity building needs of our stakeholders. It's also an opportunity, for example, if you've been facing any challenges within the project implementation, for us to perhaps have a brainstorming session and see how we can offer some solutions or workarounds to ensure that you're still able to deliver results. It also will present an opportunity for us to enhance partnerships. So to be able to link, leverage, and help with learning with other practitioners, and maybe even, as Matt had alluded to earlier, help to coordinate where there might be similar areas of work between these projects. So what would this involve? Basically meeting with us every 2 months for 30 minutes online to give us an overview of how things are going, and for us to be able to have, I guess, a more detailed discussion on everything. This is also an important component of the communication strategy for the projects, which I will touch on again towards the end. So then the final annex of the SSFA is another template And this is for the final narrative report that will be required once the project is operationally closed. And we'd like you to use this as an opportunity to reflect on how the 12-month implementation period went. It's a moment to take stock on what was actually achieved. And one of the ways that we will measure that achievement is through the indicators that you'll be developing in the project proposal under Annex 1. It'll also present an opportunity for you to unpack what worked, what didn't, to identify best practices, and also to draft material that we can use as case studies to highlight and showcase the work that was undertaken under the project. And this report is due at the end of December 2026. And then this ties in nicely to the last point I'd like to make in this, and this is the communication strategy. You will note when you have a look at the annexes that we've given a lot of emphasis on developing a communication strategy for these small grants projects. Why? Well, first of all, we really want to give these projects visibility to showcase the efforts that are being made, the results that you will generate. We want to ensure that there's consistency in the messaging. We also want to build trust and visibility with stakeholders. We want to support any advocacy and policy influence that you will try and undertake in your projects. It will also help strengthen internal coordination within the different project teams and perhaps the communities, and also help us maximize impact by aligning all the communication with the overall project goals. So for this, we need to really reach out to a range of target audiences, identify key messages, channels and tools for communication, which would include, for example, social media posts, as Matt mentioned, organizing a side event or workshop at COP17, and then, of course, ensuring that we have a detailed case study that again, we can showcase. So this pretty much wraps up the end of step 3. I don't know if my colleagues have anything to add to that before we move on.
Well, there's one question in the chat on if someone could provide a brief summary of the key intellectual property provisions in the SSFA.
Yes, we will be able to share that with you. If you don't mind, it's just that we're having the SSFA currently reviewed by our legal advisor in-house. And once we've been given clearance from the legal unit, we will be able to circulate the SSFAs. So that will be forthcoming. Thank you for your patience.
Okay, thanks. So thank you, Nia. We'll now move on to the 4th step, which is signing the contracts. So after we go do this back and forth, we finalize a document, a contract, this SFA, and it's agreed in principle by your side, and our side. Then we'd ask you to sign it and then send us the copy. And for the information system projects, we'll also need a signature from the national focal point if they're not the ones, the lead on the project. Then the CBD will sign and send you back a signed copy, and then we'll do some administration and a process to enter it into our system in order to disperse the funding. So there's a lot of back and forth in this week. I think that, it's really important that, in general, this is our proposed timeline that we try to do this in September, but the faster that we can get through this step, the sooner the funding can be dispersed and the projects can begin. So that's just signing and the next step before we get to implementing the projects. So just to mention, some of the projects, they had a longer timeline envisioned since we had this I mean, it took us some time to organize the call for proposals and get the funding organized, and now we're here. And we have about 1 year exactly to implement these projects. So some projects will have to be adjusted in order to fit that 1 year implementation timeline. So a lot can be done in 1 year. So I'm really looking forward to seeing how these projects unfold. As was mentioned, we'll have these bi-monthly reports and meetings just to keep on track. I don't think they should be very have intensive or cause a lot of work for you, but we're just trying to check in basically and make sure that things are going well and if we can do anything to help. So that's all that is. It shouldn't be a heavy burden for project leads. We're trying to also provide some information on these projects to our social media. So I was thinking that in the bi-monthly reports, it would be great if you could provide a photo of something that happened on this project, anything at all, and maybe just a small caption that we could share over social media so people could follow how these projects unfold over the year. As I said before, we can help provide some advice. We could provide some technical information, maybe some capacity building material, or answer questions through these bi-monthly meetings or whenever you need. That's what we're trying to do to support these projects. And ideally, the implementation phase will end in October. So that brings us to step 6, which is the final reports, which are actually due at the end of the year. But the project implementation will end in October, and that's when you can start working on these final reports. And then we have this COP17 event in Armenia. So, yeah, the final report is actually due in December. So that was just you can start working on the final reports in October 2026. So in Yerevan at COP17, we're going to set up side events to discuss this project. We'll have a full day workshop, and the idea is just to present and share all the mistakes you made, all the successes you've had, everything you've learned, everything that can help improve and might be helpful to replicate these projects in other countries and catalyze action and try to drum up some additional funding support. Also, as mentioned many times, we'll have these case studies. So these will be detailed case studies shared on the ABS Clearinghouse. I think there was a question on whether you're expected to be at those be in Yerevan to present at this workshop, and I think we don't have funds right now to support travel there. So either someone from your country or an appropriate person or someone from the Secretariat will do the presentation on behalf of you, but we definitely would like a presentation to show off from all of these projects. Another thing is that for communication with the Secretariat, please use the absch@cbd.int, the ABS Clearinghouse email for all communication. This will help us to ensure that the SCBD staff are all in the loop on all the projects. So if you don't email, you can email us in copy to me or Nia individually. But make sure to also copy the ABS Clearinghouse email, then we can all follow the email trail. Also, all the SSFAs you'll get a project ID number, and it will be helpful if you could use that project ID number in the subject line of any emails you send, just so we can follow which questions go with which projects. So that brings us to the end of the presentation on the next steps for the selected projects. We can have like 20 minutes on questions. I hope all of that was clear. So feel free to, well, maybe I can start with some of the questions in the chat, or raise your hand if you have a question, and we can try to answer some questions now.
And Matt, maybe I could just interject quickly something that
please.
I should have done when I introduced myself earlier. is that I will be the focal point for the community protocols projects, and Matt is the focal point for the information systems projects.
Yeah.
Essentially, we'll be working all together as a team.
There's a question in the chat on will the list of funded projects be published somewhere before or after contracts are signed?
Yes, we'll make the list of selected projects that will be funded after the contracts, after the SSFA is finalized on the website. I think that's what our plan is right now.
For now, there aren't any additional questions on the chat.
But I don't think like we're not going to make the SSFAs public, or we won't make the entire project document proposal public, but we'll provide information on which projects were selected and then maybe a short executive summary about what they're doing. Can we change the budget plan, expenditure plan? Yeah, now's the chance in the next month, in the next few weeks. Once you get your SSFAs, they will be pre-populated. The Annex 1 will be pre-populated with the information from the project proposals. And we're asking you to finalize these, update them as needed. And we realize that like I said before, some projects were expecting a 2-year timeline, which will have to be reduced to a 1-year timeline for implementation. So you might have to make changes to your plans, your budget, your activities, and we'll try to work through that in the next month. So feel free to make changes to your projects before we do we sign on the contracts. How much detail do you need in the budgets, and will unbudgeted expenses require a contract variation? Nia, I mean, I think that I wouldn't go into too details. A lot of people, I noticed that some project had like taxi fares to and from places, and they went into quite a lot of detail. I think we need to go into some detail, but I wouldn't go into a lot of details. I think unbudgeted expenses, I think we can update the contracts and deal with those kind of things in those bi-monthly meetings. We can try to deal with some of the things that come up and how to organize those activities that aren't done, that are delayed or whatever. We'll try to manage that through those bi-monthly follow-ups. Nia?
Maybe just to add, in Annex 2, we do provide in the first table a list of the budget categories, and we would need you to identify what expenditures you're likely to incur for each activity following those budget categories. So you need to at least make sure that you plan for expenditures under those categories, but as Matthew said, without having to go down to the level of detail as taxi fares and so on.
Yeah, I think the category is travel in general. It doesn't have to be like the lunch you get on the road or whatever. But okay. In addition to the information of the entity that will sign the contract, are other documents required, such as bank certification account? Yeah, in the standard contract, in the first part of the SSFA, we will require the partner institution that's going to be receiving the funds. They have to be a legal institution. They have to have a bank account, a registered institution like an NGO or a government or yeah. So they have to have a bank certification of the account. Well, I don't think we need a bank certification of the account, do we, Nia? No.
In some cases, we do if you're not
Okay.
already on our system.
Okay.
So yeah, but we will send you that information in our next communication so that you can start getting all that paperwork together.
So what other questions do people have? I see that, Manu, you were asking about the assessment and review process. So I didn't really, I talked about the first assessment and review. The second assessment and review will be happening later on this year or next year in 2026. And well, I was mentioning what I was actually saying. I think what maybe I said assessment and review, but I meant the national reports will be due in February 2026. And I think since it's been such a long time since the last assessment review, since the last national reporting cycle, we'll have a lot of new information at COP17 about how this protocol can be implemented um, more efficiently, better, what needs to be done. We'll have a lot of fresh information that can uh, help us focus action on useful projects and things like that. So just to mention, you'll as Nia said, and maybe I can just re-say it again, is that so the immediate next steps is that you'll receive an email if you haven't already with your SSFA in it. It will be pre-populated to the extent possible from your project proposals, and you'll have to review those and get back to us on any questions you have. So that's sort of the immediate next steps that we're hoping to do next week. Well, you'll get the email hopefully this week, and we'll start doing that review and back and forth and answering questions next week. So Lalona, will we individually be contacted to review concept notes that we send to have recommendations to adjust? Yeah, I think you will. So you'll get a email with an SSFA pre-populated, take a look at it, and you adjust it as you think, send it back to us, and then we'll get back to you on whether we have to meet or by email about your project and any adjustments that you have done. So feel free to either highlight the changes that you've made, significant changes, or do it in track changes so we can be on the same page of what has been changed. So would payments made to community participants be classified under staff and other personnel costs, contractual services, or general operating costs?
I'll
I'm
check
not
in with finance on that, Matt.
okay.
Yeah, as well as the question from Nepal on adding a 10% support cost for admin overheads.
I see. Okay.
There's also a question above from Dr. Dingo.
Oh, there, yeah. Si le projet réalisait déjà certains results avant la soumission de First National Report, est-ce que ces resultats peuvent enrichir le report en cas de besoin? Yeah, I think if you have results that you want to include in your First National Report and challenges or learning that has happened, experience, I think it's good to include that in your national report. That said, also, I think as we're finalizing this SSFA, if it is possible for you, you could also start preparing to start the project in October with the expectation that we will have a contract signed and you can start work soon. So you can prepare yourself to get that work done. The other thing I will say is that this is sort of a pilot project for us as well. We've never dealt with small grants like this before. We have some experience from our colleagues who do the BioBridge initiative, but it's a slightly different process. So we're also learning about how we can do this, and if this is a successful and useful and valuable for you, we can try to continue it. So it's a learning pilot learning experience for us all. So just to mention that. So will the funds be deposited in full or partial installments? So we have two different modalities for installments. For the community protocol projects, there'll be two separate installments. So a first installment and then a smaller installment just at the finalization of the project. And for the information systems, because of our donor needs, we'll have three separate installments of the project. So it will be on like 10,000, 7,000, and 3,000, or some kind of similar variation of that in um, one at the beginning, one at the middle of the project, and one towards the end. So that's how we envision the funds will be deposited. Yeah. So that will be included in the SSFA, and you can, I mean, some projects might have different needs, and you can suggest if you need funds earlier, but I think we're trying to stick to a schedule of like either at the beginning, middle, or end for the funds, because it will really reduce the administration on our side, and we won't have to do um, like individual schedule of installments. So what is the other question here? If we get all the required documents needed for an audit or finance documents, then we can work accordingly. The timesheet. Okay. Is it possible to have a Spanish version of this presentation, or is a meeting planned in Spanish, please? Um, well, we haven't. We weren't. We were going to share this in English. You can ask questions in Spanish. You can, but we weren't going to make a Spanish version of this presentation unless it's really needed. But we could, I suppose, if there's a lot of interest in doing so. Any other questions? Is there any fixed percentage for disbursement to allow us to adopt suitable work plan? Um, I think for, like I said, I mean, the idea in the SSFAs, the modality for disbursement of funds will be explained a little bit, and we will try to, is there? Yeah, we'll try to disperse funds at, like I said, the majority of the funds will be dispersed at the beginning. Well, for the information systems, there'll be a small midterm disbursement, and then for all the projects, there'll be a small disbursement at the end. So the majority of the funds will be arriving at the beginning of the project.
And just to add to what Matt's saying, the reason we can't be more specific about the proportion of these installments right now is because we do need the final rubber stamping and clearance from our legal unit on what is and is not permissible.
Yeah. But our plan, I mean, these are small grants. We realize it's not the hundreds of thousands of dollars, and we realize also for community protocols or maybe other projects that are not government projects, maybe they don't have access to a lot of funds in the beginning to get started. So the idea was that we provide the majority of the money at the start, and then some at the end, just to ensure that the projects are finalized and yeah. I think that any money that is not used, though, will have to be returned to the Secretariat. I think that's a condition in the SSFA. Any other questions before we wrap up? So, yeah, thank you very much for joining us. This is the start of close collaboration between the Secretariat and yourselves. Feel free to reach out to us anytime by email. As I said, the ABS Clearinghouse email. Put your project ID when you get it in the chat so we can just classify all the emails that we get. I'm really looking forward to seeing how this all unravels. As I said, this will be a case study in itself for the Secretariat on how this work is. This is sort of what we're planning to do instead of doing another global workshop. And I think it can be a very, I'm very excited to stop or not talk so much about the theory of the Nagoya Protocol, but to see it actually being implemented and learn from that. So I'm really excited to start this work with you. All right, I think that basically wraps it up. So thanks again. We will be in touch shortly by email on your SSFAs. Take a look at them, and hopefully we can all aim to manage that timeline that we have set up for you and the work that we have for this month, so we can just get to the part where we start working on these projects. Great. So thank you. Thanks a lot. Have a good rest of your day.
Yep. Look forward to
Thank-
working with you all.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank
Cheers.
you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Thank you.
It was a pleasure.
Bye-bye.
See you
Bye-bye.
again.
Yep. See you guys.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Yeah, bye-bye. Thank you too. Mhm.